So last week we began that preparation through an exercise really in becoming impeccable in our thinking. I called it the no whining exercise. And also by doing a review of our last year and seeing how the growth of our last year creates a foundation for what we want to birth in this year, even if that growth looked like just stalled momentum. This week, we're going to continue working with our thoughts. We're going to give a few weeks to this. And this week, we're going to do some work with affirmations. It really continues and builds upon the work we began last week of preparing for growth by refining our thinking. Now, if we think of letting go of whining as akin to removing the weeds and big rocks from the garden before we plant, affirmation work is a little bit like choosing the seeds. And I'm sure we all are familiar with affirmations by now. They're kind of the trusty workhorses of the whole change your mind, change your life school of thought that was popularized by a lot of well-known teachers in the 80s, like Louise Hay and Shakti Gawain. I think Wayne Dyer did a lot with that. But for anyone who's never read a self-help book, an affirmation basically is a statement of what we now want to be true, stated as though it already is. And the idea is that as we write or repeat this message over and over, we start to believe it, and then we create that reality from our belief. All right. Now, as helpful as affirmation work can be, it also can get really tiresome. It can get totally boring. And affirmations aren't the simple, quick, easy fix to every problem as a lot of early self-help books promised. But they still are useful. They definitely have their place in this kind of work. So they're worth a week or two of giving them some attention. And this week's exercise is a way to get creative with them and to just breathe a little new life into some of the old affirmation routines. So I asked everybody to have a stack of 3x5 cards available for tonight. So if you've got those, get them out. And if you don't, just grab some paper and pen, if you can do that. And I'm going to actually give you some time to do some writing. And what I want you to do is write each one of your fears, doubts, worries, or resentments on a separate 3x5 card. And what you'll do is you'll include all the things from the past that you're afraid will happen again, all the losses or lack that you're focused on in the present, all the worries and fears and concerns you have about the future, all the resentments that occupy a lot of your attention. And you'll do these quickly and spontaneously, just writing. If you did this exercise to its end, which I encourage you to do after this live session, you'll just write until you can't think of any more. For now, I'm going to give you maybe 5 minutes to do this. And again, this is fears, doubts, worries, resentments, past, present, and future. So if you've got something to write on and with, especially if you've got 3x5 cards, that's ideal. Just start writing these now, using one card per one fear, per one doubt, per one worry, per one resentment. Past, present, future. And just write till I say to stop. And I'm going to give you, as I said, a few minutes for that, because we're going to play with these. So if you can get that work done right now, we'll have a better experience in the next part. Okay, even if you haven't finished, just stop there. And again, I encourage you, if you didn't finish, to work with this some more after this live session. But now I want you to go on to start another stack of 3x5s. Just put that one stack aside. Start another stack, this time writing on each one something that is a success in your life or a source of joy. And here you would include past and present achievements, people and things you love, things you're grateful for, things you're excited about and are looking forward to in the future. And you'll do it the same way. You'll just put one success, one thing that you're grateful for, one thing you're excited about per card. So you make a lot of different cards. And do the same thing where you just keep writing until you can't think of any more. And just take a few moments with this. Again, just keep going until I tell you to stop. And do this spontaneously. Don't think about it too much. Just write as much as you can think of, one item per card, until you run out of things to write. Or I stop you, whichever comes first. Okay, just finish, even if you're not quite done. Again, put more time into this later, but for now, finish. And what I'd like you to do is, keeping these two piles separate, just place them side by side and notice which pile is bigger. Now, of course, I didn't give you time to maybe take as long as you needed, but notice which pile was easier to write, which you had to kind of strain for. As you look at these two piles, this is going to give you an idea as to where you direct most of your energy. Thought and attention are just powerfully creative forces. What you give attention to is what you tend to be growing more of in your life, for better or worse. So using these two piles as an indicator, and the whole process of writing these, just let it show you how much of your creative energy is being directed toward what you love and how much is going toward what you fear. What's the exercise showing you about where your attention is going? Well, yeah. Affirmations are just one layer of working with our whole state of mind. And, there is some validity to faking it till you make it. So there definitely is. I mean, if you notice that you feel happier, you're just feeling better when you're actively working with your thoughts, then you are creating a change. The minute you just start to feel like, okay, I'm just doing my homework now and it's not really doing any good, then the affirmation work, it's not really working for you. It's not a tool that's being helpful for you, because the benefit doesn't come by just doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Like if I do enough affirmations, eventually something will change. The benefit comes from changing how we feel. And when we change how we feel, we literally change our biochemistry. We change the energetic vibration we're putting forth. And that starts to change circumstances. And some of the other layers of work involve things like changing behavior, changing thoughts, but also allowing feeling to be there. I think I shared this with you in an email, that my sense with you is that there might be a piece that has to do with doing this work with other people and reaching out for help a little bit more. So, some of this work, it's complex. There isn't any one little personal growth tool that's one step fits everyone and will change your life. It's more of a layered process of discerning where you personally have some imbalance and how can you break through that. This is one little step. And some of the next steps for you might be related more to, if my hunch is right, and it might not be, you can throw it away if it doesn't fit, might be related to looking at some of your habits of self-sufficiency and see, are there ways that you're trying to do everything yourself and not letting other people help you? Are there ways that you can get more connected so that you're not creating all the energy yourself? Doing this work in a vacuum can be really hard to maintain. We get a lot of juice and energy from like-minded others. So if that piece isn't there for you, that might be something to look at. The next step in this exercise is going to be turning each one of the fearful messages you've written into an affirmation of what you now want to be true. For example, if one of your fear statements is, I never have enough money, you could turn this into, I have plenty of money for everything I need and want. And it's important as you do these affirmations that you really make sure that the wording of your affirmation truly states what you want. And doing this as an exercise with affirmations can help you become a little bit more conscious of some of the automatic thoughts that might set up a limiting pattern. An example, I've sometimes asked people in my workshops to identify what it is they most want in life. And I remember once a guy said to me, what he most wanted in life was to understand all of his problems. You know, what a gloomy heart's desire that is. And when I questioned him a bit, it became clear that understanding his problems was only a perceived means to an end, and what he really wanted was more along the lines of inner peace and freedom and joy and love and abundance and all of its various forms. So in restating these fears as positive affirmations, countering it in some way, rather than affirming the means to a desired end, if I understand all my problems, I will be able to free myself of them and be happy. It's much more effective to affirm the end result you want. For example, I now feel deeply at peace and enjoy every moment of my life. And affirming the end result will call the appropriate next step into being, often in a much different and more efficient route than you envisioned. And you know, many of our limiting beliefs are just so ingrained that they permeate even what we believe to be our positive thinking. You know, an example of this is a bumper sticker I used to see around town that read, "Subvert the dominant paradigm." Now, I've also seen one reading, "Create peace." And you know, the bearers of this first message, you know, they might have had in mind the idea of creating peace, yet just think about how different those two messages are. In the first one, all attention is directed toward A, the dominant paradigm, and B, how we can subvert it, which leads us to imagine all the things wrong, all the things that are in need of subverting. And the message keeps our attention and creative energy wrapped up in what's wrong and how we can fight it. The second message, on the other hand, draws our attention to peace with all of its more positive associations. And rather than struggling with something bad, our mind is engaged in thoughts of how to create something good. And sometimes we undermine our efforts to actualize just the most well-intentioned change and growth by pursuing our highest goals through the same old worn-out methods of limited thinking. You know, we oppose war rather than create peace, or we fight hunger, homelessness, and abuse instead of creating well-being. Or we strive to overcome depression rather than to be joyful. And the more we define our process as fighting and struggling and surviving, rather than being or creating or thriving, the power of our expectations really works to ensure that life will always be a battle. You know, think of how many cliches circulate in our culture, and cliches are really just the affirmations of our culture. Think of how many of them just reflect this notion. One is no pain, no gain, or anything worth having is worth fighting for, or shit happens, and so on. With this built-in expectation of struggle, we may succeed at winning a battle, but we never end the war. We may succeed at feeding someone who's starving or sheltering someone who's homeless, but our efforts really never end hunger and homelessness. And in a more personal context, we may survive or recover, yet never fully thrive or become whole. So as you create your affirmations, just really continue to refine them. Just being attentive to any ways your wording may express limits rather than just open-ended potential. Also just a note, on affirmations of our culture, just really pay attention to whatever affirmations you've chosen to surround yourself with in the form of bumper stickers and t-shirt slogans and humorous sayings, on your refrigerator magnets or such. And just make sure they reflect the reality you want, instead of shit happens. Because these messages we feed into our subconscious mind become the reality we create. So I'd like you to just take a moment and do a little bit of writing now, working with these fears that you identified on your cards, and take a few minutes to create an affirmation that counters each one. And you'll actually be writing the affirmation message on the back of each fear card. So you'll then have a two-sided card. One side has the fear, the flip side has the affirmation that counters it. So take a few moments with that, and while you're working on these, what I'm going to do is go over the basic guidelines for creating affirmations. And I want your attention to be more with your writing, so I apologize here for dividing your focus a bit. But I want this information to get into this recording, just in case you or somebody else wants to go back to it. This is also in the online material as well, so you can easily review it. And I'm guessing that those of you who are present tonight are familiar with this. So just don't pay attention to me, just focus on your writing, and I'm just going to go through these guidelines, just for the record. The first affirmation guideline is to always state an affirmation in the present tense. Like, for example, you would say, I am successful, as opposed to I will be successful. It's this way, affirmations are very literal. This way you won't be perpetuating a state of waiting to be successful. Now the second guideline is to state an affirmation in positive rather than negative terms. In other words, state what you want rather than what you want to eliminate. For example, you would state, I attract only love, instead of, I no longer attract abusive relationships. Because really, disappearing something bad doesn't guarantee that something better is going to show up to take its place. Now the third guideline is to affirm being, doing, or having rather than wanting. For example, you would say, I now have limitless love in my life, instead of, I want limitless love in my life. Because really, do you want to manifest more wanting in your life? Usually we don't. The fifth guideline is to keep an affirmation focused on changing your own experience rather than on controlling the behavior of others. So the example would be, the people in my life respect what I have to say, rather than, my mother listens to me. Because really, sometimes we need to let go of those people who don't or won't or can't be present for us, in order to make room for the ones who can and will treat us the way we want. Now the fifth guideline is basically that if an affirmation feels so far from your current reality that it's difficult to say, then you would begin with an affirmation of willingness and or deserving. For example, if it's difficult to say even to yourself, I love myself unconditionally, start with, I am willing to love myself unconditionally. Or alternately, I deserve unconditional love. It's okay to start where you can, and baby steps are fine. Now the last guideline is, as I was saying earlier, to affirm the end result you want, not what you believe to be the means to that end. For example, you would say, I now have a beautiful home, instead of, I now make a lot of money so I can buy a new home. If you simply affirm the end result, you may find that you get to the goal a lot more quickly and through different means than you have imagined. You might get to your new home without needing to make more money. It happened to me a couple of times. So I know anything is possible. So take a few more moments to finish your affirmations. That's all I got for this evening. You might want to again check the lesson material because there's more in it than I've shared here. And feel free to bring anything from this in your work with it over the week to next week's webinar, and we can give it some attention. And that's all I got. So I hope you all have a great week. Many blessings to all of you. And until next week, namaste. Oh, also feel free over the week to share any of this in the online forums, because you'll get a whole different level of input from people that way. So feel free to use that as a resource as well. So,
great. Thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome. Take care, both of you. Thanks for being here live. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.